Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Week Ahead. I'm going to start because I have a lot to cover. This has been a busy week. Last week was too. They held a hearing on LD 369, the bill to require mandatory paid sick leave. Long hearing, almost 6 hours. A lot of testimony from both sides, but some particularly compelling testimony by some small businesses that are going to be negatively impacted by it. The Labor Committee is tentatively scheduled a work session on the bill tomorrow, Wednesday. Not sure whether that'll happen, in part because this week they started hearings on the various workers' comp proposals. About a third of them are scheduled this week. They heard hearings on a couple yesterday, LD 601 and 600. LD 601 would reinstate cost of living adjustments into our comp system. That's something that the 92 reforms explicitly rejected. They had been part of the act. They took them out as being one of the major cost drivers. This proposal is slated to cost as much as $5 million in new costs if there are no other changes to the system. LD 600 would establish mental health parity in our comp system, and it would make compensable non-occupational mental health conditions that are somehow impacted by the workplace. Great concern. Interestingly enough, some of the mental health professionals testified against the bill yesterday. Tomorrow there's a bill on changing the statute of limitations as well as changing the work search requirements in the state. We're opposing both of those. The work search bill is 758. The statute of limitations bill is 901. Next week, there's a very important hearing in the Labor Committee on LD 402. This would change the overtime standard in Maine that employers would need to comply with when delineating who is a salaried versus a exempt or hourly employee for the purpose of establishing overtime. It's a complicated issue, but this is essentially what the Obama administration attempted to do in 2016. That provision was struck down by a federal district court, and the proposal that's in front of Maine today the legislature this time around would set the overtime standard at $55,222 for someone who was exempt from overtime versus someone who isn't. It would be the highest in the nation, and it would be really a catastrophe for a lot of businesses. Yep. We will be opposing that bill, and we'll keep you up to date on all of those. Linda?
In tax, tomorrow I'll be testifying in opposition to two bills that will reduce the exemption amount for the estate tax from $5.6 million. One bill reduces it to $1 million, the other one to $2 million. So we will be opposing those bills. It is picking up in tax. We are seeing a lot of stuff next week that potentially we will be testifying on a lot of bills. So it is picking up, but it's been slow. And the budget hearings are starting this week as well. So that's going to be interesting.
Not for me and not for you.
It hasn't been slow in energy and environment. This week, a couple things going on in the Energy and Utilities Committee. They are having a report from the Connect Maine Authority on Wednesday, also along with the Public Utilities Commission on some annual reports that can help give them some key information in the decisions they make. On Thursday, they are holding a work session on the carbon tax bill that had a public hearing last week in which we opposed. The bill's sponsor, Representative Rikerson, when he did present the legislation, he did propose an amendment to turn the carbon tax into a study. We think that's a good direction. Hopefully at the work session this week, that's one the committee chooses to go in. Down the hall in the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, they'll be working on the bottle bills. There's about 15 of them, I think, this week on Wednesday. They'll be working those. They do have a public hearing on Thursday, a bill that would ban the use of coal tar and driveway sealant here in the state. When you seal your driveway, it is the product that's used most in the state of Maine, and it's a bill we've seen the last couple of sessions, but this one this year impacts a lot of paving contractors out there in the state of Maine. And they also will be hearing a report on the product stewardship program on Friday. So that is what's going on this week in those committees. One other thing I would like to highlight from the Environment and Natural Resources Committee is last week they did vote out this polystyrene ban bill, and it was along party lines, so it was an 8 to 5 ought to pass report The Democrats on the committee voted out to pass on the banning of polystyrene in the food service industry. Think of coffee cups, things like that. And the Republicans on the committee voted to kind of study the issue over the course of the year with a report back next year. So that will be heading to the floor probably in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
That'll
be an
impact
interesting debate.
takeout containers as well, right?
Takeout
Anything,
containers,
wow.
coffee cups, so anything you think is polystyrene right now that's used in the food service industry would be impacted.
It's that kind of session. Thank you all for joining us. Megan's not here. She's at the State House this morning. She'll be back next week and can give you an update on education and workforce issues. But until then, have a great week.
Stay classy, Maine.